Welcome to No Broken Legs. It is a playoff edition, and I am your host, Evan Belfiore, broadcasting from the very, very windy but not very snowy shores of Lake Erie. Joining me to break down all of the playoff action to try to find you winners is Jimmy Champ, who is on location in Indianapolis. Jimmy, how are you?
I am great. I'm so excited to talk about these games. I think we're going to have some really, really good playoff football games and a couple crazy weather games, which should be awesome and kind of easy to predict what's going to happen in those games too. So for bettors, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's always nice to get some easy wins, especially when there's 6 games instead of 4. Always in pursuit of that perfect first playoff weekend. So let's just get right into it, man. The Cleveland Browns are traveling to Houston to take on the Texans. They are 2-point favorites in this game. Minus 140 on their money line, plus 118 for the Texans. The over-under sits at 44.5. And just before we get into the injury report, this line kind of shocked me, Jimmy. It started at Browns minus 1. I was surprised the Browns were favored right off the bat on the road in Houston. And I'm surprised that this line got bet all the way. It was up to 2.5. I think it got to 3 at some books, and now it seems to have settled back at 2. What are your thoughts on the line movement of this game?
I'm still surprised by it. I'm still surprised. I'm still surprised at what it opened with, and I'm surprised at how it moved. These are two of the hotter teams in the NFL, and I'm cautious on this game either way because it feels like this game could go 27 different ways, which surprised me with the line movement. Because I don't understand how you could look at this game and feel like for sure you know what's going to happen.
Well, apparently a lot of the public money is on Cleveland.
A lot of the public money is on Cleveland.
So we'll talk about what that means here in a second. But let's first deal with who's going to be playing in this game and who is not going to be playing in this game. The first thing we know is Dustin Hopkins, Grant Delpit, and Cedric Tillman will not be playing in this game. They are out. The only person for Houston that is out is Jerry Hughes, their defensive end. How big of a loss is that for the Texans, Jimmy?
It's a problem, but he is not a game changer. He's a role guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's still they don't have a lot of depth. That's kind of been their thing all year. Like they don't have depth like Cleveland has. Mm-hmm. So losing any of their starters is a problem, but he's not a guy that you are game planning against. You weren't game planning for Jerry Hughes.
They do have several defensive linemen that are questionable that have missed time in recent weeks, which is Will Anderson, Malik Collins, Jonathan Greenard, and Sheldon Rankins. How important are those guys to Houston's defensive front?
If any of those are their game-changing defensive line. If any of those guys don't play, they are in trouble.
Yeah, and we saw that last time. Will Anderson did not play last time, and I don't think Greenard played either.
Greenard went out on like the first play of the game.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, man. Yeah, because they lost like 2 or 3 guys during the course of that game. That was like their hell game with Case Keenum playing, who won't be playing this time. It'll be C.J. Stroud, so things will be a little bit different. The Browns actually seem to have gotten pretty healthy with the week off and just with giving themselves some time to get everybody healthy. There was a chance that Grant Delpit might come back and play. That didn't end up happening. Denzel Ward was a full participant in practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. He seemed to tweak something, and he was limited on Thursday. We'll see what he looks like. But really what we expect to happen in this game is it's going to come down to the quarterbacks. And with C.J. Stroud against Joe Flacco, I was stunned to listen to a lot of Cleveland sports media, particularly Darryl Ryder, who's somebody who tends to have a more level head about these things than most Cleveland people, just outright say Joe Flacco is a better quarterback than C.J. Stroud, which I found somewhat amusing because Joe Flacco's been good. Let's not sugarcoat that. He was great in 1 game. He's been good in 2 games, and he's been kind of blah in 2 games. So I think there's an overvaluing of what Joe Flacco has been doing. I think he's been really good at throwing the ball deep, and everything else has kind of been a little meh. What are your thoughts on this quarterback matchup and who has the advantage?
So here's the thing that we've talked about all year. Some other people have hit on it too. There were about 6 guys this year that had 4 to 6 game stretches where they looked like the MVP of the league. Joe Flacco has played good to very good the majority of the time he's been in the game. CJ Stroud's the offensive rookie of the year and should probably get some MVP votes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. He's the reason they've been winning.
I'm not sure, with the exception of the Super Bowl year, I don't know if there's ever been a time in prime Joe Flacco's career I would say he was better than CJ Stroud is right now. Not even where CJ Stroud's going. CJ Stroud right now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, but we've seen with Joe Flacco, now we know there's injuries to the offensive line. We know there's injuries to the running back. So I know that hampers the run game, but we have pretty much seen Kevin Stefanski say, I'm putting the ball in Joe Flacco's hands. I'm going to let him sling it all over the place, and that's how we're going to win football games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that in a road playoff game. Houston is really bad against the run. Jonathan Taylor ran for 7,000 yards last week. The Browns, this should be a grind-out game with a couple of deep shots, and I don't think that's what it's going to be. Joe Flacco circa 2010, 2011, I would trust in this situation. I don't trust Joe Flacco in this game. Not to outduel C.J. Stroud, if that's what we're going to do. Joe Flacco has thrown some impressive ball. I'm not going to take that away from him.
Mm-hmm.
No passes Joe Flacco has thrown this year match to the 2 passes C.J. Stroud threw on his division-clinching, game-winning drive.
Yeah, when I look at the quarterback situation, I don't see how anybody can just immediately give Cleveland the advantage with Joe Flacco. I know he has the playoff experience, but I saw Leroy Horde, who has been hopping on the one Cleveland game day show. Those guys, man, I tell you, I pretty much watch them to get a pulse of what's going on in Cleveland, and all I do is shake my head at how dumb they are.
Yeah.
And Leroy Horde said they were crazy for saying Joe Flacco is better than C.J. Stroud. I think right now what we see with Joe Flacco is a lot of what we see from Mason Rudolph in Pittsburgh. And I think Cleveland and Pittsburgh are in very similar situations where they have a lot of difficulties moving the ball. And what they've ended up doing to move the ball is they just chuck it downfield. And that's a pretty effective way of moving the ball in the modern league, is throwing up some 50-50 balls and telling your guys to go get them. That's something that we have wanted the Browns to go get, one of these Justin Jefferson type receivers.
Yes.
That can just go out there and win those types of balls. Amari Cooper can do it sometimes. It's the consistency thing with Cooper that has been lacking at times in his career, but this season that has not been a problem. He's been incredibly consistent. He's been an absolute beast. And I think you're right. Joe Flacco's and Kevin Stefanski are going to air it out. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball on this Houston front, even though I don't think Houston's all that great against the run. I just don't think this Browns team can run the ball with all the injuries they've had to the line, and I think we've seen that with the line not performing to the level that it was previously. Jerome Ford, not quite the player he was before.
Yeah.
And Kareem Hunt, still good, still runs hard, but he's more of a goal line type back these days, short yardage situations. He's not a guy with burst. And I think this is the game where we're going to look back and go, man, just like Nick Chubb really could have made a difference in this game.
Yeah. No,
you said that you thought a whole lot of outcomes could happen in this game. I actually think there's only 2 outcomes that can happen in this game. I think Houston either wins a close game or Cleveland blows them out. And I've sort of been going back and forth between those 2 things. And I'll give you my reasoning here, because if there's one matchup that favors the Cleveland Browns, it is their defensive line against the Houston offensive line. We know about Myles Garrett. We know Zadarius Smith can get to the quarterback. Tomlinson's been just a revelation on that defensive line. We've been screaming for this team to get a legitimate defensive tackle, and they did, and all of a sudden, look how good the defense is, man. It's like if anybody could have predicted that 3 years ago, it was us. And they finally get that piece in the middle to slow teams down. And it really opened up things for them. Jim Schwartz, I think, should be assistant coach of the year. I would not vote for Kevin Stefanski as coach of the year because I think the change that has happened has been because of Jim Schwartz. And I have some questions I would like to ask you about Kevin Stefanski here. Just let's do it right now.
All right.
So 2 months ago, everybody wanted to fire Kevin Stefanski. And now everybody says you have to give him an extension. And we talked about this before. You're not a fan of giving him an extension. I'm not a fan of giving him an extension. What is it that Kevin Stefanski has done to change the fortunes of this team? That's the question I've been asking all year, and I can't find an answer because most of the time the answers revolve around either they get a little bit of fluky luck here and there, or Jim Schwartz is the type of guy that changed the culture. And maybe even Ventrone. So what is it that these people are seeing that Kevin Stefanski has actually done or changed in how he coaches to change the fortunes of this team? Because I think the fortunes of this team have changed because of people other than Kevin Stefanski. What are your thoughts on that?
Nothing. They're running the same offense that DTR almost got killed playing Baltimore, but Joe Flacco's completing passes. Like, nothing's changed. Kevin Stefanski's game planning, nothing's changed. Joe Flacco is just throwing balls that only Browns players can find a way to catch. That's the only change. That's it. It has nothing to do with it. And you got to remember also, Kevin Stefanski isn't the GM. So I kind of feel like Kevin Stefanski is getting credit for players Andrew Berry has added to the team.
Yeah, but I don't even think I think Andrew Berry's getting too much credit because I think all of the moves that he's made have almost been moves, like you don't have any choices with these moves. And when he has had choices, he's made the wrong decisions. Getting rid of Dobbs was a mistake. They needed him earlier in the season. He would have played better than DTR and PJ Walker for certain.
Yeah, no, I just...
And he didn't want to bring in Joe Flacco at any point. Like, they only brought in Joe Flacco when it was a complete emergency situation and they realized, like, oh, shit, we have to get somebody in here. And who do we go get? Oh, well, Joe Flacco's out there. Like, who else? Nobody.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question...
It's I don't want to call them panic moves because I don't think I don't think that's quite the definition for this, but it's also been deep need moves where you have to do something and you have to see who's out there and there's only one or two guys. It's like I would relate it to fantasy owners who, you know, you're getting close to the end of the season and you get a couple of guys go down and you got to go see what's out there on the waiver wire and it's like, well, there's 3 receivers out there that play and only one of them starts, so I guess that's the one I'm going to pick up.
Yeah, like I will give Kevin Stefanski credit. He has done an incredible job, I would say, of keeping the locker room together through all the injuries. I would say that. I will give him all the credit in the world for that. But as a play caller and a game planner, I still think Kevin Stefanski is not as good as people want him to be and think he is. I just don't. I'm not on that. I'm not there. I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm not there yet either. I guess he can change a lot of that today.
Games that had no business, games that should have been total blowout wins, a couple of them got closer because of the way he continued to call the game.
Yeah, and that'll be the thing that we'll have to look at, specifically I'm going to talk about it again from 2 weeks ago when you're up 20-7 and you come out and go pass.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
They gave the Jets an opportunity in that game to have an extra possession before the end of the half, and if the Jets were any good, they would have kicked a field goal there and made that game a little closer. If you make those types of mistakes against Houston and you give Houston extra possessions, I think C.J. Stroud's going to cash him in because he's been doing it all year. Okay. And this is the game that really matters for Kevin Stefanski. Before we get to our picks, what does a win mean for the Cleveland Browns, Jimmy?
What does a win mean for the Cleveland Browns? It shows a stability that the Cleveland Browns have not had in 20 years. Right?
Yeah, well, more like 30 plus.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair. Even though some people talk like the 2020 season was 15 years ago, it would be impressive for the Cleveland Browns to have playoff victories twice in 4 years, because that's something that we haven't experienced. The team's been competitive, and I think with all the injuries, a playoff victory today shows that at least on the keeping the team together and never giving up side, Kevin Stefanski did an excellent job. And this would also be what? This would be Kevin Stefanski's first legitimate playoff victory?
Yeah, that's what I was getting to, because a win here is big. It ends all of that Kevin Stefanski no playoff wins on the sideline talk. It also would be 2 playoff wins in a couple of years over division winners. That's not something that should be just ignored or put aside as not being that important. That's 2 playoff road wins, and that would be huge. It would be a big step forward if it happened. Barry and Stefanski are getting contract extensions. Joe Flacco probably plays himself into a starting role somewhere next year. It won't be in Cleveland because they won't be able to afford him. And it, in the long term, though, is going to create an offseason where there's going to be even more pressure on Deshaun Watson than there has been the last 2 off seasons.
Well, that's good, because he's done really well dealing with the pressure, playing well like that.
But that will be a conversation for this off season. I think the Browns have to win this game, Jimmy, because the consequences of losing this game are pretty dire. And it's mainly because Joe Flacco has played better than Deshaun Watson. So you would expect the quarterback play next year to not be as good as what they've been getting from Watson, or from Watson is what they're getting from Flacco these last couple of weeks. And for Stefanski to not have a playoff win on the sidelines, that narrative will continue. And it would really put a shadow over a season in which the team really fought hard. I think the fans would respond positively if they lose a close game. I think they'd be like, man, just the weight of the injuries, all that. I don't think they would be calling for people's heads. But it would set up next year as a win-now year. And they would have to win a playoff game next year. And if you're going to extend Stefanski and they miss the playoffs next year, if actually, regardless of what happens, if the Browns start like 2-4 next year, everybody's going to be screaming for Stefanski to get fired, whether or not he gets an extension. So a playoff win goes a long way in calming the nerves of the fan base, but a loss here in the long term puts you really behind the 8 ball, because it means you're already behind Houston. You already owe them another draft pick, and it really means you lost the Deshaun Watson trade. And that's not something you really want to go into this offseason thinking about.
And I think, too, because we've talked about it, and other people have talked about it as well. But we've talked about how, the organization and all of the supporters all of the Baker haters who just wanted somebody other than Baker to be quarterback, who then became pro Deshaun Watson guys because that's who they went and got, who told us we got to give him time to knock the rust off. He'll get it at some point. You can't expect him to do it right away. Well, all that's been washed away with Joe Flacco's play.
Mm-hmm.
Because we saw you can come off the couch and do it if you want to, maybe. I don't know, if you actually have a desire to do so. But the thing for me that is so weird is the healthy Cleveland Browns team next year is going to look so different than this team this year.
Yeah, very much so.
And I think that's going to be weird, too, as a team. You're just with Nick Chubb back, hopefully we get back to running the football.
Yeah, that's been one of the funniest things to hear when people talk about this game, when they're like, Cleveland, a really solid run team, and they can run the ball, and they do it consistently. And I'm like, you guys have not watched the Cleveland Browns this season. No. They can run the ball, but the consistency part of it is definitely on Kevin Stefanski, where there's just times where he does not run the ball enough. And that's what really worries me about these playoff games, is when you don't run the ball, when you can't control the clock, you give your opponents time to have the ball, you give them more drives, and what happens in those situations.
Yeah, and like I said, I think, so for me, that's why for the Browns, I think they need this season to go on as long as possible, because they're kind of a little bit of a back to the drawing board thing next year. because now we've got to look at who we have, who's coming back healthy, what is our team going to look like?
Yeah.
Because we've seen no signs that for any sustained amount of time Deshaun Watson could play the way Joe Flacco has played. Now, granted, they went 4-1 in Deshaun Watson's games. Like, so wins are wins.
Yeah.
But we all know it didn't look like the Joe Flacco wins have looked.
No. And they also, just the defense dominated some of those games.
Oh, yes. Yes, they did.
So, Jimmy, we've got a game. It's in Houston. Who you got?
So I'm gonna continue to stay on point and stay on brand. I believed if Cleveland rested everybody, they were going to lose the momentum that they had, and I don't think a team can have more momentum than the Houston Texans have right now. I think the Texans win this game by a touchdown.
Wow. I'm going to go opposite of you, brother. I think Cleveland wins this game. And I think the reason that they win this game is I think their defensive line causes a lot of problems. I think they harass C.J. Stroud, and I think the coverage in the back with Denzel Ward being healthy, I think that really just solidifies what the Browns can do defensively. And this is a game that looks like it's going to be a field goal game, maybe a touchdown game. I keep going back and forth on this. I think the Browns should win this game. I think the Browns are going to win this game. And I've got it somewhere around 24-21, 27-24, 27-21. I think that we get the over, and I think the Browns cover.
Over. I think there's supports. Now, here's one thing I want to tell you that I've told a couple people, and they didn't like to hear it.
You know, I'm not going to yell at you.
So the Cleveland Browns defensive line is one of the best defensive lines in the NFL, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
One of the premier defensive lines. But the last time C.J. Stroud played against an elite defensive line would have been that college football playoff game against one of the best defensive fronts ever in college football history.
you mean the Philadelphia Eagles' current defensive front?
Yeah, and he pretty much did whatever the hell he wanted to do in that game.
Yeah, I do also worry about their receiver depth. I know Nico's a really, really good player, and he's somebody that the Browns should probably just come into this game and just say we're gonna double him and take him out and force everybody else to beat us.
Feels like a sneaky Bobby Trees Houston Texans game, man.
Oh, Bobby Tree's been all right this year. He hasn't in the past. I know he's a guy that you love. He's a guy that I have loved, but he always seems to come up short, which is really fucking frustrating.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's where, and Jim Schwartz has been so good all year. But I think that's just what it's going to come down to is for 60 minutes, can the defensive line consistently win? Because the Texans wide receivers have shown they tend to win. Now, I don't know what Nico's going to do against Denzel. It's going to be a great matchup. But I'm just curious. We know Emerson's been getting hit with these pass interference calls a lot lately. So are they going to target him and try to pick up those penalties?
Caesars does not even have lines for Bobby Tree receptions. He's questionable.
Yeah, he's questionable.
So he should be playing. Let's see if we got anything over here on DraftKings to see if they've got a line on Bobby Trees. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. But yeah, I'm super excited because it's really gonna be like, can the Browns get home in 1.5 seconds? Because I think if you give CJ 1.8 seconds, he's gonna find somebody open, and I think that's just what it comes down to. And maybe Joe Flacco still has another run in him. I could absolutely be undervaluing what he's done this year, what he's capable of. Maybe he does outduel C.J. Stroud because the Browns defense is definitely superior to the Texans defense, but the Texans secondary is one of those secondaries. They give up big plays, but they also make big plays.
That is absolutely excellent lead into what I wanted to talk about, which is the Joe Flacco parlay that I've been playing. It lost against he didn't get enough attempts 2 weeks ago against the Jets, but every other week it's hit. This week, I'm changing it a little bit. I like the Joe Flacco over total yards at 275.5. I like Joe Flacco to throw an interception because he's done it every game. And I like Joe Flacco's longest passing completion to be over 38.5 yards. That is a three-leg parlay, plus 325. You can boost that up if you want. I like that parlay. That's one that I'll be playing. I was looking up Bobby Trees. And to get back, there are no lines for Bobby Trees right now. And I don't know if that's something that'll probably change as we get closer to game time when everybody sees him on the field warming up. Yeah. Right now, Nico Collins, 73.5 receiving yards. I would probably look at the under on that. If it's not Bobby Trees, who else on this Houston Texans team do you think will get fed receptions if it's not Nico? Or if it's not Bobby Trees?
When Robert Woods isn't on the field and Nico Collins is covered up, there is no main guy. It is whoever comes open. CJ just looks for a Texas player that's open and throws him the ball. So I really like.
So that gives you some options. You have Brevin Jordan, who doesn't get a lot of touches, but he's at 25 plus yards, is plus 250. You can get Dalton Schultz.
Dalton Schultz has been on a bit 40, of a heater. So
40 plus yards is minus 125. 50 is plus 135. 60 is plus 225. And then the numbers just go up from there. So you can find some good odds if you think Ward and the Browns are going to shut down Collins. And that's something that I'm looking at. I think the Browns win this game. And if you pair that three-leg parlay that I just told you about with the Browns to win, now you're at plus 750. So you're getting really good odds on that. Flacco's going to throw a pick. He's going to connect on at least one bomb, and the passing yards are probably going to be there because I don't think Kevin Stefanski can help himself. And I also think this is going to be a close game. I think this game's probably going to be a little bit back and forth. Like I said, I think this is a field goal game, maybe to a touchdown. But I like the Browns here, man. I think they advance. You've got Houston. We're going to get to see what happens this afternoon. It's going to be a lot of fun. Final thoughts on this Browns game, man?
I think this is going to be one of the better playoff games of the weekend, possibly just because it's going to be one of the ones indoors with good weather.
This is not going to be in a snow and windstorm with icicles hanging off of people's mouths.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of narratives here to look at. D'Amico Ryans came into a job. Bomani Jones has said it's been crazy. The Houston Texans he's pretty sure the Houston Texans are the first team to have hired back-to-back black head coaches simply because no white guy wanted the job. And D'Amico Ryans just came in and with a bunch of young players, changed the culture seemingly pretty quick. They seem to have hit it out of the park with C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. They've both been excellent at what they've been asked to do. And I think I think both of these fan bases and both of these organizations, I don't think either of these teams will be sad with a loss.
Yeah, I think they can both look back on a season of accomplishment because of everything that's happened. It's just you've had injuries. On the Browns side, it's the injuries, it's the chaos. And then on the Houston side, it's, wow, we're really young and we've already made this big leap. Can we keep this momentum going forward?
Yeah, and Joe Flacco, man. This is one of the stories of the year if he can now get a playoff win too. And Kevin Stefanski,
it'd be pretty extraordinary.
And there are a lot of people around the league and around Browns Nation that do believe he deserves Coach of the Year, and this is a way for him to stamp that. So there's just so many narratives with this game, and I really think it's going to be a really good football game.
Yeah, I do too. And we have other football games to talk about.
Oh, yeah, we do.
The next one we will talk about is the Saturday night affair, which has ruffled a lot of feathers with fans. And, before we move on, I want to give a shout-out to my boy Brian Easterday, who is going to Houston. Well, he's already in Houston, and he will be at the game, rocking for Cleveland. So safe travels to you, my friend. Hope you get to see a good game.
Yes.
The night game has ruffled some feathers because this is going to be on Peacock Premium. You have to pay to see this game. A lot of people are saying the NFL's sapping the Taylor fans, the Taylor Swift fans, and making them pay to see Kansas City. I have a lot of thoughts about what this move is for the NFL. I know this is a move that is going to make them a lot of money, and I know that they're going to cash those checks and that ratings are up. But this reminds me of the types of decisions that Major League Baseball made that really started eroding their support. When people can't see playoff games, you start pissing people off. So we'll see if there's any backlash to that at any point. It's certainly not going to happen this year. It's probably not going to happen next year either. But as the NFL continues to expand into the different days of the calendar and put a lot of these games behind paywall, I think they're going to start losing some support and losing some of that rabid fan base. But we'll see what happens. The Kansas City Chiefs are home. They are now 4.5-point favorites, minus 240 for their money line, plus 196 for the Dolphins. Over-under sits at 43.5. This game is going to be just fucking cold. They're calling for negative 10 degree, negative 20 degree wind chill, so it's going to be in single digits without the wind. And everybody is all over Kansas City because the Miami Dolphins do not look like a team that should work well in the cold. How do you think Miami's going to approach this game, Jimmy?
I don't think Mike McDaniel necessarily has a changeup or a curveball. Like, I don't think Mike McDaniel is going to sit down and go, okay, we've got 3 pretty good running backs. Let's kind of revamp. Let's run the ball 30, 40 times this game in this weather. I think he's going to try to do exactly what's got him here, and it's going to fail miserably. Give me the Chiefs. Give me the under. And the Bradley Chubb injury was big as well.
That was where I was going to go straight to. I'm totally with you on the Chiefs. That game last week or the week before that Miami played it was last week against the Bills.
Last week, yeah.
Like, why is Shane not getting more carries? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I'm sitting there yelling at the television. Well, no, I wasn't yelling at the television because I was glad he wasn't doing that because I needed Buffalo to win that game. But just as a when I put my analyst hat on, I try to take my passions and my biases out of the game and just look at what's happening. And Shane was running the ball pretty well, and they just weren't giving him any carries, and I don't understand why that was the mindset that they had. This is a game where it's going to be about the running backs. I like Kansas City to kind of stifle what Miami's going to try to do on the ground. I also really like Pacheco in this game. I think Pacheco is the type of running back that should really feast in this type of game and in this type of environment. He's a hard-nosed running back. He wants to get at it. He wants to hit people. And this is the type of game where you need somebody to hit people because it's going to be cold, and some of these guys – not used to playing in the cold it's going to get to a point where if Kansas City goes up 10, if it's 10-0 or if it's 14-3 or 14-6, you start getting into the third quarter, you come out of halftime and you got to get all warm and then you got to come back out. Yep. Like, Miami's just not ready for that. Kansas City's played in some cold weather games. We are people who are from Northeast Ohio. Many of our listeners are from Northeast Ohio. And it's just the cold is different when you're getting down into those temperatures. And where Miami are going to try to adopt the cold, we were born in it. Much like Kansas City, they're just going to know how to do it. Pacheco's over-unders at 66.5. I love him to go over there. I also like him to score a touchdown in this game. And you touched on the other part of this, which is I don't know how Miami's going to rush the quarterback. And if you can't get pressure on Patrick Mahomes, he's going to chew you up. And if you try to blitz Patrick Mahomes, he's also going to chew you up, as long as his receivers catch the ball. But Miami's had some problems catching the ball. It's going to be cold weather. I don't think they're going to try to overly get cute. It's going to be make those completions, make them easy, give your receivers body catches instead of hand catches because those are going to be tough to make. But I'm with you. I like the Chiefs. They win. They move to the next round, and they will be playing somebody I like the Chiefs to win. They advance to the next round, and depending on how this next matchup matches up, depending on how this next game goes, we could be seeing Kansas City Buffalo in the second round, which would be a lot of fun.
Yep.
Which brings us to the Buffalo Bills, who are 9-point home favorites against the Pittsburgh Steelers, minus 480 on their money line, plus 360 for the Steelers. The over-under on this has plummeted to 33. It was 36.5. It is going to be cold and windy and snowy, and this game's going to probably be a lot of fun to watch. I don't know how much fun it's going to be to play. Can Pittsburgh do anything to stay close to this Buffalo team with no TJ Watt and considering the conditions?
No. This is years past. You would have thought this would have been an advantage for the Steelers, but the way their offense is playing right now, this isn't a Steelers type game. I could see the Bills legitimately winning this game 10-0, covering and the underhitting, and me being very happy.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Buffalo. At first, I thought Pittsburgh could maybe keep this game close, but the only way they've been scoring recently has been with through the deep ball and setting everything else up against that. I don't see how they're going to be able to throw the ball deep with the weather conditions. It's Mason Rudolph in a playoff game, and Buffalo's going to be able to move the ball because this is the type of situation where Josh Allen's going to be running. He's going to be used as a running back a lot more. I think they should focus on Fournette and Cook and try not to pass the ball as much. And I think they can do that and move the ball against this Pittsburgh front that's lacking TJ Watt. If you go back and look, when TJ Watt is in games, Pittsburgh is one team. When he is not, they are another. So this is a situation where I really think Buffalo's going to win this game, set up that Kansas City Buffalo game that we're all hoping for, and that would be a lot of fun. Okay, so if you are inclined to do such things, you can bet no touchdown scorer at plus 2,800 for the Buffalo-Pittsburgh game. Just throwing that out there. If you're the type of person that loves it, I think Buffalo's going to score a touchdown because I think they're going to run the ball enough.
Yeah, get a touchdown.
That's what it feels like. But I'm just throwing that out there for our people. If you're so inclined to think that nobody's going to be able to score in this game, that's a bet you might want to look at making.
I think I may be more inclined to bet a no field goals or extra points.
Yeah. Take the under on made field goals and extra points.
I think so.
Wow, I didn't even realize the first 3 games are the AFC games and the last 3 games are the NFC games. That's how they scheduled this. Odd. All right, well, our next game, the next 2 games we'll talk about, points shouldn't be a problem. The Dallas Cowboys are hosting the Green Bay Packers. They're 7-point favorites now. This line sort of moved around from 7 to 7.5. I've seen it as high as 8 some places. The Cowboys are minus 350. The Packers plus 275. The over-under sits at 50.5. Jimmy, Dallas has just been fantastic this year at home. Green Bay's defense is not very good. Green Bay might be able to get some points against this Dallas team, but I think this is an easy win for Dallas. I like Dallas to cover. I like the over. I like find your Dak Prescott. All the stuff I talked about with Joe Flacco parlays, I think you can do the same with Dak Prescott. I think he's going to get more than 1.5 touchdowns. He's going to probably throw for 300 plus. CeeDee Lamb's probably going to score. This is just how Dallas operates. I love all those guys in bets. Parlay it all together with Dallas to win and Dallas to cover. I think you're going to have a fun day.
Yeah, I don't.
How do you think Jordan Love plays in this game? Because he's been exceedingly efficient the last couple months.
Yeah, I think as long as Aaron Jones is healthy, I think Jordan Love will play well. Jordan Love's bad games have absolutely coincided with Aaron Jones not being in the lineup. He makes a difference. I don't know. Now, they had a couple of their top wide receivers out last week. I don't know if those guys are back. But, if Christian Watson is back, I think that makes a difference. I think he's going to look okay. He seems to be maybe a little not as bad as we thought he was going to be, not as good as he looked to start the season. Somewhere in between, they may have a guy to work on, to build around. So I think they will. I think the Packers will not get blown out, but I'm with you. I think as long as Dallas is playing home playoff games against teams without an exceedingly good pass rush, I think Dallas is going to win playoff games.
Yeah. What was the receiver you mentioned?
Christian Watson.
Christian Watson was limited in practice this week with a hamstring injury. He's listed as questionable, but he's going to go. Considering that they're not playing in cold weather, he should be a full. You would expect him to play the full game.
Yeah, so he really complements the rest of the offensive weapons. But yeah, I mean Dallas is just they've looked. You just can't really take it away from them. They've looked really good at home.
Yeah,
and when Dak has been protected, he's been able to do kind of whatever he's wanted to.
Yeah, when I was on Sully's podcast earlier this week, I talked about how Dak Prescott in any other year would probably be talked about as an MVP candidate, but because of their problems with San Francisco and the general media perception about Dak Prescott, we can't have that conversation because nobody will. You'll have talking heads on there like pounding the table and how can Dak Prescott be the MVP when he played like that against San Francisco? And it's like, it's just I don't care. Like it's supposed to look at this as a year-long award. One game isn't supposed to matter that much, but as I've said, these awards are all about narrative, and the media just does whatever the fuck they want with them, regardless of what we see on the field, in my opinion.
There it is.
Our next matchup sees, and this was the line that stunned me, Jimmy. When the Browns line surprised me that they were favorites, the Detroit Lions being 3-point favorites over the Los Angeles Rams. This was 3.5 when it opened. The Lions are minus 160 on the money line. The Rams are plus 135. The over-under is now 52. I don't understand what's going on here. I don't understand how the Rams are a field goal down and started 3.5 down. Give me the Rams. I think the Rams are the better team. I think they're playing better now. I think they have a better coach. I don't think they're unraveling a little bit like the Detroit Lions are. They seem to kind of be on tilt. I love the line. I love the Rams all day. Puka Nacua, Matt Stafford. Give me them. Give me Williams. Just give me everything you can with the Rams. I think they're going to score 30 points.
I think this was a Vegas trap.
Really?
When I saw this line, that's what I thought. Because so much of the public, so much of the narrative has been around the Lions have turned their organization around, Dan Campbell, all this nonsense. And I think this was a Vegas trap.
So this is a Sharps game. The Sharps are going to clean up and take all the public's money.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
I don't understand how you could have watched both of these teams play the last month and think the Lions are better than the Rams.
I think the Rams right now look like a top 5 team in the NFL.
Oh, I totally agree. And Sam Laporta, now, like I said with the Browns.
Yeah, Sam Laporta being out's huge.
I wish the Browns would have played their guys a little bit, but this was why you don't, because the Sam Laporta injury, which is huge for them. The Rams defense, I think they can contain the Sun God enough to slow down the offense. And if there is a coach out there that's going to know how to limit Jared Goff, it's Sean McVay. And there are a lot of great narratives out here this weekend. There are none greater than Matt Stafford going back to Detroit with a real team and getting to beat the shit out of the Detroit Lions. There's no narrative as good as this. Not a one.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. This is the best. This is incredible, and I can't wait to watch it. But yeah, I completely agree.
I heard a national guy was talking to somebody about this and saying that because of how well Jared Goff has played, that you could make the case that Detroit won that trade. And I was in my car and I wanted to scream and break something because it's like, the Rams won a Super Bowl. They won the trade.
Immediately.
like, I don't care what happens. Like, if Detroit wins the Super Bowl this year, okay, maybe we can have that conversation. But the Rams won a Super Bowl. They won the trade. Period. End of statement.
Yep.
Up next, we have the final game. It's on Monday night. I don't really like the Monday night playoff game, but
why? Why are they doing this? Why is this game not happening at 1:00 today?
Because the NFL wants to take over the calendar, so it's just football every single day. It's football. Come watch the football.
God,
just wait till they start playing games in Europe and Latin America regularly. There'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday games. It's going to be people are going to be screaming because they're going to try to take over the entire calendar. That's just what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I don't understand it.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are now 3-point road favorites, minus 160 on their money line, plus 135 for the Fighting Baker Mayfields of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The over-under sits at 43.5. This line did not surprise me, but I was also waiting to see how much Philly was going to be favored by because I like Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I this line surprises me. I don't understand. I don't get it. Like, Tampa has not looked good the last 2 weeks, but the last 2 weeks they've played teams with grown-up defenses that aren't falling apart with Matt Patricia at the helm.
Yeah, you also have an injured Baker Mayfield, and we know what that means. When Baker's really beat up, he misses some passes. He missed a couple throws recently. He did not practice on Thursday. He was limited on Friday. The extra day, I think, will really help him because he's got a rib injury. That extra day, I think, really matters, and it's a night game, so he can kind of get loosened up. I think they're going to do just enough to win this game. His connection with Mike Evans has been fantastic, and this Philly team, man, they are just falling apart at the seams. What are the chances? Or I guess I should. So everybody's against Philly right now because of how poorly they. Well, not everybody because they're favored, but Philly's been so bad recently. How can they pull themselves out of this tailspin?
I don't know, because the thing is, like, the defense has played so bad that it's taken away from the offense not being very good.
Yeah, now you have no A.J. Brown because he got hurt.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, in what? I mean, now as an organization, are they starting to wonder, like, was last year an outlier for Jalen Hurts? Is he really that good? What's going on? Like, we've been mostly healthy on the offensive side of the ball. Why can't we score points anymore? Like,
well, they can't score points because their offense has become bad running plays and deep shots downfield.
Yeah,
like, that's their offense right now. That's all they do. They don't have any way to consistently move the ball, which is, I mean, that is not what you want.
No, it's been weird. Like, their offense the last month, it hasn't been good, and the defense has been objectively one of the worst in the NFL of a team not trying to lose for draft picks.
Yeah,
So I'm with you. I'm on Tampa. Because Baker is a little beat up, I think I like the under. I think I'm leaning the under. But I like Tampa here. I think Tampa Bay is gonna get for a team that was not supposed to win a division. I think they're gonna win a whole playoff.
Wow, that'd be huge. For Tampa to be where they are in and of itself is pretty amazing because a third of their cap is just dead money. They took it on the chin this year, and for them to be where they are is really impressive. Todd Bowles is somebody that we've wondered, is he somebody that can be a long-term coach? And I think he's kind of answered that question. We'll see what they can do next year when they reload.
Yep.
But we'll see if they do it with Baker or if Baker winds up somewhere else. That would be the worst-case scenario for the Browns, right, is Tampa Bay wins and Cleveland loses. Like, that would just cause chaos.
For Cleveland to lose to Houston and then Baker gets another playoff win. So, yeah, that's pretty much worst case. Healthy Baker Mayfield for most of the year, who's pretty much been a top 10 quarterback. It's been the bottom of it, even if you want to say top 12. You know, numbers-wise, he's like top 10 in most normal, important passing statistics this year. Playing well. Him and Mike Evans have a great connection. Like, I mean, and for them to get a playoff victory, Kevin Stefanski to lose to Houston, I agree with you. That would be absolutely worst case scenario. But all the injuries make it okay. I mean, it's okay. All the injuries make it okay. It's all right. It's okay.
Well, that's the slate, man. 6 games, Saturday through Monday. The Browns play this afternoon. We'll see what they can do, and we'll be here next week to break down round 2 and find you some winning bets, man. Any other bets you can think of that our listeners should be keeping an eye out for or put some money on?
if Baker is if it looks like Baker is healthy and ready to go, I like his over on passing yards. I like Mike Evans over on catches, yards, and touchdowns.
Yeah, I like that too. And I said I like all the Rams. I like a lot of Dallas. Your running props with Buffalo, with Josh Allen, Cook, and Fournette are probably things you should be looking at, along with Pacheco in the Kansas City game. If you're big on Kansas City, like I am for future bets, I think betting the Miami players, especially a Shane, to get some carries, and we'll see what happens with Mostert if he winds up in this game. I doubt it. And maybe even Tyreek Hill running the ball, because they're going to have to find ways to get him involved in the game in ways that don't necessarily involve deep passing or passing. Yep. So I think he's going to end up getting a couple of carries. And is there anybody in the playoffs that's scarier with the ball in their hand right now than Tyreek Hill?
No.
Hey, that dude he's just playing on another level right now. So that's it, as a hedge against Kansas City. I'm big on Kansas City to at least make it to the second round. It'd be great if they won the Super Bowl, but I don't think we'll talk about that later. But
yeah, and I we kind of alluded to it. We didn't go into it too deep, but I like Stafford over on yards, Stafford over on touchdowns, Kupp and Nakua over in yards, catches, and touchdowns. I think that game's going to be a shootout on the Rams side. So I think there are a lot of ways to really leverage and make some money this weekend.
Absolutely. Well, Jimmy.
And all of the Steelers unders.
Yeah, absolutely. All of their unders. I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball at all.
No, me either.
Well, thank you for breaking this down, Jimmy. It'll be a lot of fun watching these games later today. Safe travels for you and Emma coming back to Ohio after your little weekend getaway. And just it's been great talking some football.
No place I'd rather be, brother.
And I want to thank all of you for listening. Make sure you get your bets in. Make sure you just be smart about your betting here. It's the end of the year. If you are ahead on the season, this is the time to maybe take a few home run swings. See if you can't bet the slate and get yourself I think I put in something for all 6 games, and it was like plus 12,000. So if you can go 6-0, there's money to be made there.
Yep, it's worth it. It's worth it. Try to take a feel and take a shot at it, man.
Yeah, and we'll be here next week to break down everything that happened. We'll either be talking about chaos in Cleveland or can Cleveland make an AFC championship game. But until then, for Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore. Thank you for listening to No Broken Legs.